from Chung Deere, $500 for apple tree to be planted at Haywood Meadow, 1-day special license. Alcott PTG, October 1st from 7 to 10 p.m. at 58 Monument Square. Rotary Club on October 22nd, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at 415 Plainfield Road. Saltbox Farm, October 3rd, 1 to 5 p.m. 40 Westford Road. West Concord Union Church, November 18th from 6 to 10 p.m. And Emerson Umbrella, a Sunday entertainment license, October 2nd from 3 to 6 p.m. and October 9th from 3 to 6 p.m.
Just as preliminary, should I get an acting clerk for this?
As soon as we do this,
Okay.
next slide is this.
Just as preliminary, should I get an acting clerk for this?
As soon as we do this,
Okay.
next slide is this.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hoffman to be the acting clerk as a result of Jane Hotchkiss being absent for this meeting.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, executive session minutes. We don't have any for that, correct? Okay. It's not 7:10, so we should probably see if we can find something to. Could we pull up number 7 and do the Estabrook Woods?
Four?
That's exactly what I wanted to do.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. That's why we have him here, you know. You never can tell. How about let's do town manager's report. Mr. Whalen.
Mr. Chair, I just have a couple of things to mention. The Public Works Department plan to wrap up the paving, this summer's paving on Barrett's Mill Road and Liberty Streets today. I didn't hear if it was completed, but that was the plan. They have some
Barrett's
weather-
Mill was combined.
Great, so I don't think you're going to start any new projects until next spring. So that should, hear if it was completed, but that was the plan. They have some
Barrett's
weather-
Mill was combined.
Great, so I don't think you're going to start any new projects until next spring. So that should. Building Commissioner John Minty announced his plans to retire on December 2nd of this year, so in just a couple of months. There have been very few complaints about any decisions John made. I think he was always considered very fair and even-handed and would help people go to the Board of Appeals if they didn't agree with his decision. So John will be missed when he leaves in December.
We'll have what kind of a search will we?
We haven't discussed that yet. Lori Lavoli, the local inspector, is quite qualified. We have 2 qualified local inspectors, so we'll probably request applications, but we do have some in-house, at least one in-house candidate that's very capable. And John has been training both of the assistants or the local inspectors to take on some of his enforcement duties. The house at 91 Sudbury Road has been unoccupied for some time. Local Inspector Lori Lavoli commissioned a board of survey, including the fire chief, an engineer, a local architect, and a construction management professional, as well as herself, to evaluate the condition of that property, and concluded that it's unsafe, it's structurally unsound, and it would require a substantial investment on the part of the owner to make it safe. So we're in the process of notifying the property owner that he must make it safe, or the town will demolish the building. The town is permitted under the statute to demolish a building that's deemed unsafe. Fire chief recommended the building be deemed unsafe. He was concerned that his firefighters getting in there were at risk of falling from the attic or from one of the upper levels down below. So whether first responders are responding to an alarm or injury of some other person, there's a risk that somebody could get hurt. And there's a danger of fire because the brush around the house has not been maintained. The abutting properties are also at some risk, higher elevated risk of fire. So that will be playing out in the next few days, I think.
Has there been contact with the current owner?
Yes, there has been contact with the gentleman. He lives in Cambridge. He thought in the past he's been able to solve the problem by simply boarding up broken windows or making minor repairs, and he's done that pretty faithfully. But at this point, the roof has been leaking for some time, causing structural damage.
There's no maintenance at all.
And it's actually
it is a hazard.
The building has slipped off its sills.
Be aware that there's substantial liability on his part.
Yeah. So we have been in touch with him, and but it may be that the building will have to be taken
But
down.
he has he can either repair the building, pay for it to be demolished, or let the town demolish it and bill him.
That's
right? Is that
correct. But all of which must happen fairly rapidly. He was first notified of this problem in mid-July, and really hasn't done much to make it safe. He won't have much more time to
And
make
in
it
the
safe.
demolishment of the building, will they also be, will probably be necessary to take some
They would.
shrubs or bushes or trees down?
I don't know about that. I believe that they have to bring it to grade, so the foundation would have to be either removed and filled in, or it would be brought to grade and leveled, so there is no hazard of somebody falling into the foundation, that sort of thing. I don't know about tree
Demolition
removal.
is contracted out?
Yes.
The town doesn't have to get
Well, the town may, if the property owner doesn't step up and hire a
paid
contractor
for
to
it,
take
but we
and pay
don't
for this,
have the
but,
liability of...
of doing the work, and then we would, if the town does it, we would place a lien on the property and collect the debt when the property's sold.
I would think the neighbors would be thrilled to see it come down.
Yeah, it really has not been cared for in any way for quite some time.
And there was a small committee that accompanied the inspector to make this determination.
That's right. It was a
correct?
group of total of 5 people that agreed that the property was beyond repair, particularly because the sills were rotted and the building had slid off the foundation.
It's good.
And they had a warrant in order to be able to do so.
That's correct.
It's good. And at least we've been able to make contact with the current owner and
Yes.
notified him. And
So he knows what's happening.
Good.
And lastly, I'll just mention that the deadline for community preservation funding applications is Friday. Marcia is planning to prepare the applications you identified as priority, as well as Delia and Rich Rain from Public Works, who are preparing those applications before the deadline.
And I think you and I had discussed signs. And I think we need to get on our agenda.
Signs, signs in the public right-of-way, following up on the amended sign code bylaw, sign bylaw, town meeting approved. That's on my to-do
So we
list.
need to, are we going to get a recommendation or a report from the town to look at? Because they're starting to proliferate. I mean,
They are. So well, I don't know if there'll be a report. It's really just, right now, there are no regulations. So commercial and non-commercial signs are showing up in the public right-of-way. In the past, we had regulations that governed political or charitable signs, and that was deemed to be an inappropriate regulation of content. So we'll have to come up with some regulations that really distinguish between commercial and non-commercial only.
I guess I think we should get it on our agenda as quickly as we can, but I think we're going to need some guidance. At least
Sure.
I speak for myself, not knowing
And
what can be done or whether their towns are. But I notice now, not only is there a proliferation of signs, but after events have taken place, people aren't taking them down. There's a lot of Stone Soup Kitchen signs still up. There's Minuteman signs still up.
So I'll bring something for you either at your next meeting on October 17th or the meeting after that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And I did overlook that Walden Pond is reopening. It's a visitor center, and the ceremony is tomorrow, Tuesday, September 27th at 2 p.m., and the governor did extended an invitation.
Great. Other questions for, oh, look, it's 7:10. So our next order of business will be a public hearing for gas main petition for new service at 292 Muscataquid Road.
I move to open the hearing.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good evening.
My name is Dennis Regan, and I'm the permit representative from National Grid. And National Grid hereby respectfully requests your consent to install and maintain approximately 110 feet, more or less, of 2-inch gas main in Massaquid Road, Concord, from the existing 2-inch gas main at house number 264 westerly to house number 392 for a new gas service.
Okay. Well, you know our concern.
Yes.
Okay, and one concern is going ongoing issue of when you take a gas main into a new property, do you extend it across the property or just as far as you need to take it to go?
Well, in this instance, it's going to just go to get the service in the house in this particular instance. And going forward, I'm not sure what's going to happen. It's not something that, at my level would be discussing it. I think the lawyers were in touch with people here, but I understand that this one's going to be okay because the house next door does not want gas. And that's noted.
Current time. At the current time.
Yes.
Right.
So, Mr. Chair, I mentioned that it might make sense to get a legal opinion. We haven't asked for legal assistance in this matter. Again, the gas company's policy conflicts with the town's policy for sewer, I think electric and wastewater, where we bring if a home wants a utility in front of the property, it's required, the property owner is required to place the utility extension the entire length of their frontage, so that other people aren't required to do that. The gas company doesn't follow that practice, and it seems to me like the board is within its reason to establish that as a practice you want to see happening going forward, so that the property owner isn't caught in the middle between the gas company and the town in the future. So right now we don't have a legal guidance on that. The gas company has said their legal guidance has said they're not obligated to do that. But I think it's a reasonable condition the board could require, so perhaps that would be the next step, is to get an opinion from council for matters going forward while you don't have an application pending.
And the gas company does not pay for, does the customer pay for that installation? Apparently, obviously.
Yes.
Like they do.
Yes.
They would pay for
And in
that.
some instances in a town like this, that might be another 100 feet of gas main that would cost X amount to come.
And the excavation that goes with it.
Yes,
So the
yeah.
cost can be substantial. But again, the Public Works Department has had that practice for many years, decades even, and suggests that the same rules apply to the gas utility. So I would suggest we get a legal opinion, see if you're within your rights to require that in the future.
So irrespective of this issue, which we'll take up, we wanted to make sure you knew that
Yes.
we were going to be trying to make sure we understood our legal position, and then we would bring it back to a subsequent meeting as an agenda item, not connected to any particular installation.
I understand, sure, yep.
Okay, good. Now, with respect to this motion, are there other?
So I just want to make sure we understood that in the memo that we have from Rich Rain, he discusses that that CPW had asked National Grid to verify that the neighbor didn't want or will not want a gas line put in between now and the next 7 years. And National Grid did make that call. Homeowner said, no, they're pretty happy with what they have and they have no intent. So it's a case-by-case matter. This one seems to be okay.
Now, there's a fairly substantial set of criteria by the Public Works Department that is included in our package that
Yeah.
would apply in this case.
And folks will adhere to those
Yeah, I understand.
as you have in the past. Okay. Other questions? I would entertain a motion then.
Yes,
please.
We have someone from the public may wish to
Is there
speak.
somebody from the public who wants to speak about this? Come up here and identify yourself, please.
State in, Mr. Regan.
You don't need to move. We have another.
Hello,
Good evening.
my name's Jonathan Mers from Mers Construction. I'm building the hold for the Crowleys, and we've been in business since 1986 and located in Carlisle, Mass. So we're professional builders that do high-end renovation and construction work, and we are trying to get gas service into the house, and we are moving the Crowleys in 8 weeks. We have been trying for 1 year with National Grid to get gas to the house, unsuccessfully. And we cannot be caught in this bureaucracy of, because we have a house that is an 8,000 square foot house that is run on natural gas. And without gas this fall, the water lines, actually within a matter of one of these cold nights, 34 degrees last night, we will have freezing water lines. the delta of where the daisy chain stops or whether we go from one boundary of the property to the next or not does not affect us. And us and our client have agreed to pay for the gas from one property line to the other, and we need to get gas into the house. This situation has been between National Grid and the town, and we're at the end of our rope. So I don't know what we can do to.
So you're in favor of the application?
Yes.
I think they're on the edge of moving it.
We're at a point where we need to have National Grid scheduled to work tomorrow morning. It just needs to pass through.
Well-
The street gets closed up November 1st.
Why don't we just thank you for your contribution and let us vote, and I'd make the problem go away.
All right, thank
How's
you.
that sound? All right, thank you. I do appreciate you coming. Any other comments? All right, I entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move to close the hearing.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Let me ask before, I should have asked before are there any other questions or comments from the public? Hearing none.
So we're okay with approving it?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Move to approve the National Grid petition to install 110 feet of 2-inch gas main from house number 264 to house 292 for new gas service at Muscataquid Road, Concord, in accordance with plan dated April 29th, 2016, filed with the Select Board as noted in the order dated September 26, 2016.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, and we will be in touch. Right? Thank you. The next order of business is a Library Corporation trustee. Welcome. Please come up and sit down, introduce yourselves, and we look forward to hearing from you.
My name is Sherry Litwack, and I'm the president of the Library Corporation. And I'm delighted to be here tonight. I'm going to be giving you an update on a variety of topics. I know I have 10 to 15 minutes, so I'll try to be as efficient as I can. I think I'm going to move this to the side here. So we distributed a document earlier today that was a history of the library, and it included the town library agreement that was established in 1873 when the library was founded. We still have the agreement in effect. The last time it was updated was 2009, so periodically we look at it, make sure that it still applies to today's, to these times, and that it's still appropriate. And so what I'd like to do is not go over the whole document, but talk about how it relates to the building project that we have in mind that we're hoping to do in the next few years. We purchased, when I say we, I mean the Library Corporation, purchased the house next door, which is 151 Main Street. And let me back up just a little bit to say that I think you all know, but just in case, that it is the responsibility of the Library Corporation to maintain and preserve the library's buildings, grounds, and special collections. And it's been like that since 1873. It is the town's responsibility, basically, to provide the utilities and pay for staff and the majority of books and materials, although we contribute to that as well. In that document, you get a sense of what we budget each year and what we've spent, and of course, what the town spends. I will say that in the last probably 15 years or so, because we had a major capital project for the main library and also one for the Fowler Branch Library, if you take what our annual budget is as well as those capital expenses, we've probably spent in the library in the last 15 years. It's probably it's pretty close. So when the house next door came up suddenly for sale, we thought we should take a serious look at it, because already we knew that we were having some space needs, and there were some things we wanted to do in the library that we were limited in doing. So we had to make the decision very quickly. It was over a holiday weekend. It was a Memorial Day weekend in 2013. So with the library director, we did a financial analysis, we looked at needs, and we came to the conclusion that this would be a good idea. However, we did not want to put in an offer, nor should we put in an offer, even according to the town library agreement, anything related to the buildings and that, into projects like that need to be also, we need to speak to the town manager. That's right in the agreement. So on Tuesday morning after the holiday, we had a meeting with Chris, and at the same time, we had other trustees meet with the building commissioner, John Minty, and with Marcia Rasmussen to discuss zoning, to make sure that, that it could be used for the use that we wanted to use it, and so on. Chris knew that while he could not speak for the town or directly, he was enthusiastic about the idea. He knew that an opportunity like that doesn't come along very often, and so he was encouraging in terms of going ahead with the stipulation that, of course, as we went along, we would be checking in with the town and working on this together. And we also heard something positive from John Minty and from Marcia Rasmussen. No, we didn't see any red flags. So we put in an offer, and the offer was accepted. So that's sort of the process of how we acquired the property. We're currently renting the building. We're fortunate to find a family who wanted to rent it. And so our expenses, including taxes, which we're now paying because it's not being used for library purposes yet or public purposes yet, but the expenses, including the taxes, are covered by the rent. So that's obviously a very positive thing. Just also in terms of the process, we've been having regular updates with the town manager and the town treasurer in a variety of ways, either inviting them to one of our board meetings or having a meeting here or at the library, just for an update of where we are in the process. And we continue to be transparent in that way. I thought I would talk a little bit about how the project ties to the library's long-range plan, because that's sort of the point. And so, Andrew, if we could take a look at, we'll start with the mission of the library, which you can see is to inspire lifelong learning and actively promote personal enrichment by connecting community members to information, ideas, culture, unique historical resources, and each other in a tradition of innovation and excellence. Next slide, please. And so what we did when we purchased the building, and this had already started before we purchased the building, we met with many groups. We had focus groups. We brought many town groups in to see 151 Main Street, and we had a survey that anybody in the public, we encourage people in the public to fill out. At the same time, Carrie was also preparing the long-range plan. I hope everybody knows Carrie, the library director. And I'm sorry, I should introduce Mario, is the vice president of the Library Corporation. And so we wanted to make sure that what we had in mind would be in sync with the long-range plan. And so what we're hoping is that by doing this project, we'll be meeting future needs and where libraries are going, because as you probably know, libraries are evolving, and our library is busier than ever, and attendance is up in every area, and it's exciting, but we're somewhat limited now as to what we can do, partly because many of our programs have to be we have to have them when the library is closed, and that obviously limits us. With the integration of 151 Main Street, we'll be able to have more meeting spaces where we can have programs while the library is open. So that's going to be a big advantage, but as you'll be able to see some of the other uses that we have in mind. Okay, that's it. Next slide, please. So some of the things that we're looking forward to doing is, both parents and teachers, are just brimming with ideas of things that we'd like to do at the library. A lot of, as you probably know, in education now too, there's a lot more going on with hands-on kinds of activities and collaborative kinds of activities. And we're somewhat limited the way we are now. It sort of has to be more like quiet activities. We have story time and so on, but you can't get too messy in the library. But with the way that we're reconceiving the Children's Center, we'll be able to do all of those things, and as well as our story time and some of the quiet activities as well. Okay, next slide, please. We also want to make sure that our library is welcoming and provides services to every constituency. And so we're looking very carefully at the teens. And one thing we learned when we did our market research is that you can't lump teens together. You can talk about the middle schoolers and then you can talk about the high schoolers, but it's not just like one big group. So we've been looking at lots of exciting things that we can do for both of those age groups. Next slide, please. As you see, in particular, high school students, it's really exciting. We open the library during exam time, and it's full of high school students, studying, and they find every nook and cranny, and they can stay, I think, till midnight. 10. Well, that's still later than the library is usually open. And they really like using the library that way, and they'd like to be able to use it even more. So we'd like to have spaces for them to be able to work both independently and collaboratively. And what we also learned is that libraries need more social spaces, spaces for conversation. You may, if you have visited other libraries, you may see many of them even have cafes and, kinds of things. And while we may not actually have, full-blown cafe, we would like to have an area where you could get a cup of coffee, and it could be high school students or it could be parents whose children are participating in programs, but just more of a social space. And the way the library is configured now, that really isn't an option. So we'd like to provide that opportunity. Next slide, please. And this gets to the social space of. Libraries truly are community centers, and they're becoming more and more so. I mean, ours always has been in many ways, but we need to go even further in that regard. And again, some of our traditional spaces don't lend themselves to those kinds of activities. Next, please. Seniors. We don't want to forget about the seniors. We reach out to seniors, and we provide services to some of the assisted living places and Council on Aging and so on. And we try to provide opportunities for seniors to come and use the library. But many of our adult programs are very well attended by seniors, and I think this is really a resource for them in the community that's very, very important. As I think that the richness and the diversity of our programs is really vast and connects to many different interests, and we want to continue that and do more of it. Okay, next. Technology. We've tried to stay up to date with technology, and we are at this point in time. We offer quite a bit in terms of, well, obviously Wi-Fi, but we also that shows 2 staff members who give workshops on various things related to technology. I myself took one on Facebook, but they offer them on a variety of topics. We want to continue to do that kind of education, but we also want to make sure that we are keeping up with technology and ways for people to research, in different ways. And also, so that the library can be used, it's interesting because we want the library to be used both remotely as well as at the library. But we need to be able to update, our technology services. And we've been working with Mark.
Oh.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, right. The IT person in town to make sure that what we're doing is connecting with what the town's goals are as well. Okay, next, please. Okay, this just shows another, what we'd also like to do is use the library for public information more and more. But again, we need spaces and not be so limited to be having to do that only when the library is closed, and that because that presents issues with custodians and other kinds of issues as well. Okay, so that's based. Those are just some of the things that we have in mind. If we're able to integrate the 151 Main Street with the library. And I will say that when I say integrate, ideally we will connect the buildings. We know that we need to have that approved, by the HDC. We know that we have, some things that we need to address in order to do that. But the staff, I know, feels very strongly that the building will work so much better if it's one campus and not really two separate buildings. So that would be the ideal plan if we're able to do that. So I thought I would just talk a little bit about the timeline, what we've done, and what we need to do. Okay, Andrew, next slide, please. Okay, so I've mentioned about the purchase of the building in 2013, and then I mentioned about the market research we did, the task force to look at potential uses for additional space. And in this, you'll also see when we've met with the town manager, the town treasurer, along the way. In May through September 2014, we developed some preliminary plans of what this might look like. We were able to rent the house. And we started to engage a fundraising consultant because, again, I want to just remind people that it's the Library Corporation that's responsible for raising the money for the building project. We conducted a feasibility study. We were pleased with the results. We were encouraged by the results. And we are now at the point of next slide, please. We're now at the point of trying to obtain some leadership gifts to support the project. In June, we had a wonderful retreat where we brought together the Library Corporation Board, an advisory group, the director, and a campaign planning group to discuss the plan and figure out what our next steps are. Everybody was very enthusiastic. And so now we're really in that July to September 2016 and into the fall of 2016, where we are very much in what we would refer to more as the quiet phase of the capital campaign, which is to trying to obtain leadership gifts to make this a reality. I just finally, that's my last slide, but I did want to mention that it is likely, based on what we know, and all of this depends on how we do with our fundraising, obviously, but right now it looks like we would not come to the town meeting for any budget expenses, that the soonest would be spring of 2018 for fiscal year 2019. And also those expenses would only relate to staff and utilities. One of the things we will ensure is that our plan is energy efficient. That's something that we're going to make sure that we integrate into the plan because we know that's an important goal for the town. So that's something that we would work toward as well. Yes, Mark Rayo?
We might be seeking some CPC funds because is we have some historic things that we would want to renovate, and also for perhaps some funds for improving accessibility. But that would be CPC funds and not for the capital expenses which we raise privately.
One other thing I will say, I don't know if you know who John Palfrey is, but he wrote a book called Bibliotech, and it's how libraries are evolving in this age of technology. And he's also happens to be the head of Phillips Andover Academy. But we were fortunate, and he's kind of the go-to person now. You see him on television talking about the future of libraries. But we had him come to a program at the library, and we gave him a copy of our preliminary plan and our, the goals that we're hoping to achieve. And it was clear that he read it because he referred to it during his talk, but he reinforced everything that we are planning to do. I mean, he just felt like that we were right on target in terms of where libraries are going. But he also made a point of saying how fortunate we are to have the library that we have with the historic spaces that we have, because they're wonderful spaces even for quiet reflection and for writing. And not every town is fortunate to have that, and that's an important part of libraries too. It's not all about the social experiences, but that, we're really in a very fortunate position to be able to grow into the future.
Thank you. Or questions?
I was just wondering whether you had any idea of the scope of the fundraising goal here. What will this project take?
Okay, so the way to answer that, we do have, as a preliminary plan, just an idea of what we want to do and how we want to do it, even though it's totally dependent on whether we can raise the money to do that, and if we can't, we may have to revise that plan. But what I can say is that about 15 years ago, the Maine Library had a major capital campaign. And that project cost a little over $8 million. And honestly, it was mostly for infrastructure. It wasn't even so obvious in terms of, what it did. It was important things, but not so obvious. We think that this plan is going to cost about the same amount, which this is 15 years later, but it's going to transform the way the library is being used. So, we really see it as transformative. So, we feel that the amount is really, very
Can you share
positive.
your plans in some detail with the town manager so that, this was very,
Or do you have any
Great.
images or drawings you could share?
We do have drawings, and we're not prepared to share that in a public forum yet because as you know, with the way capital campaigns work and fundraising, that we want to make sure that we can achieve, what we have in mind before we really want to share it totally publicly. That being said, we're more than happy to continue, updating where we are.
You can speak for himself. We've had conversations and
Right.
That's right. I've been updated from the very beginning, and Tony has been included. The former finance director has been included as well.
We have shown. At that time, we did show the sketches that we had. But again, just in terms of just sharing the public, we don't want people to get their hopes up in some ways too. That this is what we're doing if we can, in fact, raise the funds to do that.
Concern I've heard is that the public doesn't feel they've had input into any of this, and they're concerned that it'll be kind of just dumped and either a yes or no. And I'm wondering, have you gone, say, before the Committee on Disability to get their input in terms of, because there's a concern there that already the existing library, there are problems with access for the disabled. And I think it's important to get that type of input early on. And I would also urge perhaps to have more of an open process so that you can get input from neighbors but also other citizens.
Yes.
It's something that that you want the whole town to be proud of.
There's no question about that's such an important point. The interesting thing is that particularly in the beginning, we met with so many town groups, and I mentioned the survey that we did, but we brought groups in. We conducted focus groups actually at the high school with many different demographics. So we got the word out. We really publicized that we were doing this, and we wanted as many people to participate as possible. So we did that actually early on, and so what we have now is informed by those focus groups and that market.
I'm not sure whether the general public feels that as much.
Right.
I mean, I've been involved with the Public-Private Partnership Committee,
Sure.
which is a new committee, and the library example is a fairly good one because the town becomes responsible for ongoing cost. And if there hasn't been a feeling that they've had input into what is going to be and what they're going to have to be using taxpayer funds to support, I just think that that's an important, and I hope,
I'm definitely hearing what you have to say, and I think that's something that we'll keep at the forefront of our minds, and at the very soonest opportunity where we really feel like, yes, we think this is going to happen, but it's not happened yet. I mean, would still, even at that point, have quite a bit of time before it would actually happen. We would love to share.
Well, I would get the input on the disability
Yes.
issue because I think that's a particularly significant.
I will make sure that is
And
done.
Council for Aging as well. I'm glad to hear that you're already doing a great deal in that.
Yes, definitely, but thank you for
In
mentioning
addition
that.
to the capital expenditure to be making to renovate the space and connect it, hopefully, do you know or do you have a sense of, you gave us a great list of stuff that would be good to do and you're concerned about, but do you have a sense of what you intend to do if you're successful and how that might convert into budgetary needs for the town going forward? I mean, I think we would really like to.
The two budgetary needs for the
I'm
town.
sorry?
The two budgetary needs for the town would be potentially additional staffing
Right,
and utilities.
right.
Everything else, the corporation would assume in terms of cost.
Yes, I
So
understand.
those are the two things. So we've had some conversations about that. There's nothing definite yet, but we're not talking about huge amounts of extra staffing and phased in down the road.
And one interesting thing is, well, as I mentioned, but the utility piece, we would certainly focus on the energy efficient
Sure.
piece of it, because again, we're not going to say, well, we're just going to create a building that doesn't pay attention to that and then put that on the town. But the other thing with the staff is, while we don't have a number yet because there's still a lot of details we need to work out, what we do know is it's, even though we're having quite a bit more space, we won't actually be increasing the staff that many people, because the role of librarians is changing. And so people are going to be kind of doing their jobs in somewhat different ways and doing more floating and not be as specific necessarily to a particular department. So I think that will be an efficiency for the town
Well,
as
it's
well.
not so much what you are or you aren't going to do, but having us know about it
Oh, yeah.
with
Right.
as much lead time and specificity as you can manage so that we are able to plan effectively. And so the public, as Tom is indicating, feels like they've been a part of the process as opposed to excluded from the process and being asked to pay
Yes.
part of the bill, I think. is
Yes,
the
that makes
issue.
that
So it
makes so
sounds
much
very
sense.
exciting.
Makes
Yeah,
so
I
much
guess
sense.
that's a point to make here, though, is you're presenting to us kind of what the situation is, but I don't know what it is. So I don't know what box you're checking. Are we involved in the process right now? So I guess we know the next steps that are coming.
Yes. Yeah, I think they've looked at a few development scenarios of what things might look, and they have an objective of what they'd like to achieve, but they have to determine whether they have the funding to build
Because the
that
fundraising is
project.
what will determine which option gets
Yes.
put out
Yep.
there for
Yep.
review. And that's when
Exactly.
everyone.
And I agree that the comment on the staffing, I don't envision substantial additional staffing because we don't expect to have substantial additional new programs that would require staffing. But cleaning the building, it's a little bit more for the cleaning folks to deal with. The utilities are, I think if somebody says, well, I'll build an addition onto your home if you pay the light bill, I think that's pretty appealing, that there's more space that you have available. You want to pay the electric bill and maybe clean that space, but they'll take care of building the building and fixing it when it needs to be repaired and that sort of thing. So I have been encouraging from day one that, particularly for the young adults and the children's program, there's a high demand there and not as much space as we'd like to have. So I think
All
that.
sounds very exciting.
Yeah. And also, just on the energy, we've recently agreed to update the lighting to make it more efficient. And we are getting some money. I forget, we are from some town,
light plan.
whatever. But there are additional capital costs to doing that, and the corporation is assuming that cost, and that'll inure to the benefit of the town because the utilities will go down. So we put up some costs for making the lighting more efficient, and the town gets, we all get a benefit. We all pay taxes,
Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much for coming, both of you, and
Very exciting.
Carrie as well. Thank you for coming, and I hope you'll keep us informed. And
We
we'll
will,
look forward
and
to
we can't wait for the
hearing
day
the
where we
developments,
can engage you
as
even
they-
more. So thank you
as
so
they
much.
progress.
Part of the process.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Our next item is an update, Estabrook Woods Access Committee charge. We had the language, Andrew, do you have the language to?
Okay, beam it up, or you want that?
Yeah, I just wondered if he was going to put it up for us to look at.
Yeah.
You turned it off?
Yeah, 'cause-
Well, that's okay. We all have it.
okay. It was just to me December 1st and. not
Right.
November
So
8th.
essentially, what the committee is asking is for their timetable to be extended and submit their final report December 1st, and then to essentially to delete the paragraph that said they were supposed to be done by July 15th. Those are the two issues.
I think that the reason they need the delay is not so much they're not doing the work, but they're doing so much work,
Yeah.
and they're getting so much input.
That's a
that
great
they-
committee, and
they
they're
need to
wrestling
start.
with really complicated
Yeah, there are a lot of
issues,
things to
and
consider.
we're
And
We're
from what I
lucky
gather
to
from
have
Jane,
them.
they're doing, meeting very frequently
Very
and
frequently.
very active and an excellent group.
absolutely. So I would certainly entertain a motion to,
I move to
Amend the
amend the
charge.
charge of the Estabrook Woods Access Committee charge substantially as discussed.
is there a second?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chief O'Connor. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Select Board. My name is Joseph O'Connor. I am the Chief of Police. Before I get into my update, I think there is some business that I have to put up in front of you.
Indeed.
Is with this report that's coming out, we had temporary parking restrictions on Estabrook Road in place. I would ask the board to set some time to be determined after receipt of the report to keep those restrictions in place. Depending, it sounds like, I think you just said December 1st, that you may want, I would recommend probably 60 days to be able to digest the report, and then we'll look at the parking and look at the whole situation holistically. That would be my recommendation to the Select Board.
Chief, when does the current parking restriction expire?
It is expiring yesterday, today, yeah.
So
Right.
we really need to take action then this evening to extend that, correct?
That's correct.
And extending it until February 1st would be 60 days. Does that seem like a reasonable? Yes, sir. Mr.
I think it
Town?
was suggested that perhaps that the board vote to extend the parking restrictions 60 days past the date when the report is received. If the report is delayed in being received, then you don't have to come back again.
That's smart.
So,
That's smart.
if you're
But
willing
with
to.
the restriction, if it expired yesterday, we want it to continue during this period, I would assume.
Right, correct.
So,
So extend it from now through
So
30 days
we would-
after, 60 days after receipt of the report.
so you're right, and you're the one who put the parking restriction in place, right?
With the approval of the
With
Select
approval
Board.
of the select. So you would put it in place again beginning today and ending 60 days after the submission of the report. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'd love a motion.
I authorize Police Chief O'Connor to reinstate the temporary parking restrictions at Estabrook Road, starting from today, September 26, 2016, to 60 days after the town receives the report from the Estabrook Woods Access Committee committee of the Estabrook Woods, final report.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Chief, can I just ask a question? Have the number of complaints gone down at all
question.
since we've had these restrictions in place?
They have, and I don't have the exact data here. Mr. Rasmussen, who's a resident up in the neighborhood, but also sits on the committee, has been getting some data, and we have our data as well for our calls for service. But it seems that the restrictions that have been put in place have been working. I go up there on a regular basis because I know this is something that a number of residents continue to talk about, and quite often there is usually always availability. There's sometimes on Wednesdays have been difficult. The next few weeks, depending on the foliage situation, that's gonna we'll see how that goes. But it seems like some people have found some different places to go and enter the woods.
First snow, we'll see.
Chamberlain Woods for sure.
Chamberlain Woods has had cars parked there now every day.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Before you move on, what about, I saw for the first time driving down Lowell Road, off-road bicycles, not motorized, but off-road. I only know that's what they are. I don't know if that's the right term, but they had very large wheels, tires, going up Chamberlain.
The property owner can decide whether that's allowed or not allowed. The land trust allows that on some of their properties and does not allow it on others. So I don't know if they have a posted.
Property by property.
Exactly.
Is it a motorized vehicle or is
No,
just
it's bicycles, but they are kind of the big tires and Mount Billy. Yeah, it's
tires
like
are
mountain
really
bikes,
big
but they
now.
look like,
Yeah.
big inner tubes.
Yeah, there are these new tires that are very popular. They're very big. You can see them
there's a
going
whole
across
group
Walden
of
Pond
people.
in the winter. Huge tires.
All right. Thank you for that, Chief. And then if moving on to the next matter, the update.
Sure. So I want to be respectful of the board's time, and I know that there are probably questions on current affairs and how they're affecting our police department and so forth. But I just thought I'd give you a few highlights and a few updates. I know Chief Cottrell was here a few weeks ago and talking at length about the tornado. So I know there were a couple questions about emergency warnings and so forth, and Chief Cottrell did mention it comes under the purview of the police department running the public safety dispatch in partnership with the other departments, including the fire department. But one of the things that did come out from the tornado and notifications, historically weather conditions have not warranted code red warnings to the public. After this event, we took a look at that to see how we could get some solutions to it. And we've got a lot of feedback from members of the community on code red. Some people want more information put out to them. Some people want it limited. And the department, under my administration and past chiefs, have really tried to balance that. But we wanted to give people an option, and I spoke to the town manager on it, and our goal is exceptional service all of the time. So we looked in, we talked with the Code Red, who was our emergency notification provider, and we were able to institute an opt-in. And I know Chief Cottrell mentioned this, but I do want to say it because people may be watching tonight, is that people to opt in, and they can get tornado warnings, flash flood warnings, and severe thunderstorm warnings, and that again, that gives people the option. We did hear from a lot of the residents up in the area that they got cell phone notifications where MEMA pushes out notifications to geographical areas. This will work very similarly for people that opt in. but we also heard from residents, particularly some of our seniors, who said that they don't have cell phones or don't have them on and still have landlines in their home. So we wanted to provide this option. You know, we're the first town in the Commonwealth to have this option utilizing Code Red, and I think that is something for public safety in the future. I don't think any of us ever predicted a tornado in the middle of the night. When you look at the statistics of it, the probability is so low. And, you know, as Chief Cottrell mentioned, you know, we're very fortunate that we didn't have more damage or more people injured. I do want to say, as Chief Cottrell stated, I'm very proud of the service that my officers provided during that, and my command staff and all the town departments working together. It was really something great to be involved in, from the aspect of how well we work together to solve the problems and restore service and get streets open and all the things that people did. And you know, I think the town really shined during those few days, and you know, I'm proud of that.
There were no criminal complaints issued as a result of any activity over that time, was there?
No, we put out some things through social media asking people to stay away. We also, our officers, we put them on alert for people that might be coming in, you know, the so-called gypsy contractors and so forth. You know, we did turn away a few individuals, but we didn't have any problems or any frauds or anyone to be victimized, which was great.
When the chief was here a couple of weeks ago, we thanked him on behalf of the select board in the town. We extend that to you and your officers and your personnel, and you should get a letter from us if you haven't already, because I think we sent it out anyway. I hope you'll extend that to all of your staff too. We're lucky to have such good response from you folks, Public Works, the light plant, the fire department, so we're grateful. Thanks a lot, Chief.
You're welcome, and I'll extend that to the department. So currently, staffing is at 35 sworn officers. That has been the authorized strength, I believe, since the Clinton administration. So it's been some time since we've increased the number of officers on the department. When I reported to the board, the last time I reported is chiefs had openings in the past, and I wanted to see how we would do having full staffing, to see how we'd perform, how do workload analysis of what we're getting done, and you know, so we've had that time period to look at that. We are getting some increased calls for service and issues that are arising that are affecting not only our community but other communities, particularly the opioid issue. Fortunately, we haven't been affected as some other towns have been really devastated by this issue. I recently spoke with the school superintendent and, you know, talk to her about things that they're seeing in the schools and so forth. So we're probably sometime in the future we'll be exploring an additional school resource officer to deal with the K through 8. We currently have one officer detective who does the high school and all the middle schools and elementary schools. And that's really one of our core community policing services that we have, is having somebody in the schools, and he also works does elder affairs, working out of the COA. So he's got a pretty good load of work that he is performing, and we're looking for ways to possibly share that load with some other members of our department. Community policing continues to be our focus. I think we've made some real strides in what we're doing. I know, Chair, you attended our recent open house, and that was the first time the department invited the community into the house, into our station. We call it our house because we probably spend more time there than we do at our regular homes. But it was really a great event. We probably had about 300 to 350 people come. We had some of our law enforcement partners from my old agency, from the Transit Police, to do a canine demonstration of a detection dog. Also, the Carlisle Police came down as well, had some representation, because they're really strong partners of ours, particularly with the schools. We had the National Park Service there, showing the work that they do, and we had the state police there doing identikit for young children, so they can have their fingerprints taken, so families could take away those prints and have them. God forbid there was any type of issue that ever arose. And we got really some really excellent feedback. We also involved DVSN, domestic violence partner, as well as Communities for Restorative Justice, and I'm told that they got some volunteers out of having that event. They were exposed to it, and both those two groups are currently housed in the police station. I do want to just comment on domestic violence, because as I look at some numbers and trends, and I did speak with their executive director today, we are seeing an increase in reports of domestic violence, and we look at that. We believe that it's traditionally an underreported crime, that the police department, but also our partner DVSN, getting the word out to people to report those types of situations that they're in to us, so we can take action and also provide victims services. But it's something that is certainly we're not immune to those types of issues in our community. So I do encourage anybody that's watching this and knows of anyone in need to please contact us or DVSN.
That often tied with substance abuse?
It can be tied with substance abuse. It can be tied to mental health issues, and it can just be tied to people who are exercising power over others for whatever reason. I mean, there's a number of different things that causal effects of domestic violence, but we certainly want to try to protect those that are in those situations.
When you say an increase, what percent? Any sense of that?
Well, I can give you the raw numbers right now. In 2014, we had 64 reports. 2015, we had 65, and we're at 60 already this year. So it's the
holidays tend to be a higher incidence, correct?
As we get to it, yes. Yeah, traditionally they are. We would hope that on those days that our offices would be quiet days, but unfortunately, quite often we're called into homes to restore order. Another initiative that we have coming up, and I'm using this opportunity to publicize some of the things that we have. We have a Citizens Police Academy that we're trying to get off the ground. It's a 10-week Citizens Police Academy. There'll be a number of topics: community policing, what new recruits go through, officer safety, motor vehicle law, a tour of the Middlesex House of Correction. The sheriff has invited us to bring a group from town in there for a tour. Some active shooter training, so people can come and see what we do. And some shoot, don't shoot scenarios, which we partner with the Sheriff's Department, and they have a truck that's fitted with video equipment. And the idea of this is to bring people into the community and to see what we do and see what our training is, and try to have a better understanding of what we do. Not to, because I think a lot of people are seeing things on TV and snippets and forming opinions. And I try to tell people that our policing profession has been painted with a broad brush recently, and that in our community, our officers are highly trained. That policing in different parts of the country, the training levels are different, and we take a great pride in making sure our officers are prepared to deal with a multitude of different situations. So again, another attempt to get people into the station, understand what we do. We ask anyone that's got questions about policing to please take advantage of this. It's our hope to get this off the ground and then make it a regular part of what we do.
Has it begun?
No, it'll begin on October 5th, and it'll run on Wednesday nights for 10 weeks, and it'll be 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we'll certainly work with people who have difficult schedules, because we know what
how many
period of
people
times.
can you accommodate?
We're hoping to have a group of about 20. We think that's manageable, and we want to make sure it's interactive. And again, when we go off property to the sheriff's department what they can accommodate when we go. So,
And the hope that this is year one and that you would do this maybe annually?
depending on what the turnout is, we could do it biannually. We could do it annually. We want to see what interest there is in the community. Other towns have done it successfully in other parts of the state, and we're hopeful to see what
I think
comes
it's a
out.
great idea, and I hope it does catch on.
I mean, the really thing that I'm excited about is with this and with our open house is our offices look forward to this. Our open house, people, our officers love showing what they do, and quite often they don't necessarily have that opportunity to spend as much time with people as they did there in an environment that is fun. I think a few of them got some ice cream on them from some of the young kids. I think I got on my leg.
Forgot to mention there's free ice cream.
Free ice cream. But we're on the open house. We're hoping to run that every year with the same day as Ag Day, because we thought they really complemented each other really well. And the fire chief and myself, we thought it was great and got really good feedback.
It was a great event.
So one of the things that the board had asked, through the manager is to communication with the community. I know maybe some of you do follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and the town's new website. We're really trying to get as much information out to the public as we can, particularly when there's good things that are happening with the positive interactions of officers with people in the community, but also public information that we try to share with people, whether it's a bear running through town or some of the scams that are going on, particularly like the IRS scams and things like that. So we're really happy with the success we're getting on that. We have about 2,500 people following us on Twitter, and we're closing in on 1,000 likes on our Facebook page. So we think that's getting information out to people. The opioid and narcotic issues that I mentioned earlier, and I also reported to the board that we had, the last time I was here, that we had entered into a partnership with surrounding towns as far as having a social worker working with the department. And we've coordinated a few events also with the Concord Carlisle Youth Services. We had in November of 15, we had a Dr. Kevin Hill from McLean Hospital come into the high school and talk about marijuana usage, and he was very good, very very informative, and really put information out there for people to make their own opinions. On November 1st. We're partnering, with the schools, and also our social worker has been working as other towns are doing this as well. It's going to be a film shown on November 1st. It's called If Only. It's by the Wahlberg Foundation put that together. So there'll be a showing for parents on November 1st, and there'll also be a panel discussion on that. On that panel will be a Dr. O'Connor. He's no relation, but he's someone that I've known for about 20 years, and his story is really something. He's an obstetrician by trade, but now working with substance abuse. Also, Mike Duggan from Wicked Sober, and also a mother from Carlisle who's their experiences and sharing that with parents. On the second, it'll be shown. The film will be shown to 9th and 10th graders. And 11th and 12th graders, and there'll be discussion and panel discussion after that as well. So we're trying to give people as much education about these issues as much as we can. Try to get some prevention, but it's something that has affected the region. We do now currently have in all our cruisers, our officers are carrying Narcan in the cruisers. In partnership with the fire department, responding to these calls. We go to every medical call with the fire department, and there have been saves. So we're fortunate for that. And then we also try to follow up with education to people. If we get any idea that someone is having an issue, we try to get a social worker and officer to reach out and try to link people to service. I got asked the question the other day, if someone had drugs and they brought them to the station, would they be charged? The answer to that is no. We want people to bring that in, try to link people to services. We've got to put a medication drop that's available 24 hours a day in our police station. Hundreds of pounds of medications have been destroyed. We recently, in partnership with the public health department, we were able to get a grant to get a box in there for shops. A number of people have medical shops in their homes and no place to dispose of it. So we're taking those as well and getting those items out of the. I hope to have a pilot program to have our officers respond to houses if people can't get to the police station and pick those things up and get them out of the community when they're no longer needed for medical reasons. In policing around the country has been a major issue, and I know there's been some members of the community talking about militarization of police and so forth. And I think we had a good demonstration at the open house of some of the equipment that we have available to us. The question was posed to me the other day: how much military equipment have we taken from the federal government? The answer is zero. We have not taken any, but we are fortunate to be in a community that supports public safety, and our officers have the equipment that they need to do their job. Policing is a focus throughout the country. In August, I attended a seminar at the White House where chiefs from around the country went in. The president had a series of these sessions where police chiefs from around the country came in to discuss the 21st century policing report and how that's affecting policing going forward. So there are a number of issues coming. I'm sure you all hear about the swirling around about body cameras and all those types of things. And there's a lot to it, and a lot of the things that people are talking about, they're not simple solutions. But in our community policing initiatives, getting out, talking to people, and building trust, try to ensure the confidence of the public is what we strive to do every day. Probably one that you do. Everybody wants an update on is traffic, and the horrible traffic. Good luck is yeah, it's certainly a challenge. Rich Rain and I attended the Hanscom area town meeting. I guess it was last Monday night, or last Thursday night. Last Thursday night over in Lincoln. We're experiencing the same things that every other town is, and I've been talking to my colleagues in surrounding towns. There seems to be an increase in volume due to probably the economy is improving, as well as development west of us, but also the ways and things like that are causing people to come down roads. I use Strawberry Hill Road as an example. Road not really built for commuter traffic, but people are getting off Route 2, working their way through Acton and coming around based on what's going on. So it is a challenge. I will tell you, Fridays are a great day to drive through town because it seems like Friday mornings haven't been that bad. But as we watch it this week, we're starting to see now different times. It got a little later today. I think people are still trying to feel their way out to see how once school is back, how they're going to get through. Usually this is done by now. We're usually back to some semblance of normal. But Route 2 is jammed every single day in both directions. It's really been busy. I think with that, I'll conclude and take any questions.
Well, we expect you to solve that parking problem. Put you on the agenda for October 17th. I think give you enough time to do it. Any questions for the chief?
You finding the relationship with the courts and the district attorney's office, is that working out well?
Yes. The district attorney is a partner with us. That's important work when we do get to the court. But what we really try to do is prevent crime. We don't want to be bringing things into court if we don't have to, if we can use restorative justice. So
That's what I'm, leading to there, because sometimes there can be an attitude, if you will, that they don't like to have cases diverted from the court system, and I'm hoping that there is cooperation in that regard.
yeah, the district attorney has been adopting more. They're willing to refer cases, and I went with Aaron Freeborn and spoke to South Shore chiefs and their district attorney about restorative justice and shared my thoughts on it. Police, our discretion, we still have wide discretion on what we do, and if it's appropriate, we don't necessarily have to bring everything to court. And that's one of the beauties of being in a community like this. We know people. We know what we think. If we can take a chance on getting someone into restorative justice or some other diversion program, we think that's and it works. It's positive. Restorative justice. When you look at the numbers for recidivism, it's certainly a worthy program.
In the event that the, I guess the petition or the marijuana legalization passes, do you have plans in terms of how educational programs with that in regards to that?
We will have to do more education. There is, it's one of those issues that I think it's going back. I think the medical marijuana. I've talked publicly about this. If any of you are given a prescription by your doctor, that medicine has been approved by the FDA. There is no definitive study on medical marijuana.
Except that opioid abuse has gone down in the states that have had medical marijuana.
Well, I'm not sure about that data yet.
That's what I've read recently.
Yeah, I mean, really on a lot of this data, you want to have a couple years worth of data, and I'm not really sure about that. What I do know is when you look at places in Colorado, some of these other places, you're looking at the foods and the candies that are out there. They're geared towards children, and Dr. Hill, when he talked about the impacts on being able to concentrate and the impacts in school, for young people and so forth. I don't think the picture that some people paint is so rosy for this legalization.
My only point is it may pass, and we better be ready if it does.
Yeah, we'll have education. We'll have to work with the schools, and we'll put things out there. I mean, it's just not. There's a lot of depending on what side people are on. People are passionate about it, but it's not the marijuana of today is not the marijuana of 1968 and the early 70s. It's potent and it can have negative impacts on people. I think anytime you put smoke into your body, I can't understand how that can possibly be good for you.
Other questions for the chief?
I just have a couple. First, I'm just curious, is the morale of the force changing because of what's happening around the country? Are they starting to feel concerned about citizens, heightened concern about policing in communities? Are you feeling that?
The morale of the Concord Police Department, based on that, is we are doing well. And I'll tell you, part of it is because people in our community, after the Dallas, Baton Rouge, probably quite a few of our officers, might have put on a couple pounds because people were bringing in so many cookies and things to them, just to say thank you, we support you. But we're not immune to looking at some of the negative things about our profession. I still believe policing is a noble profession. And I think, I go back, talk about the broad brush that people are painting our profession with. There are some things that have happened that are horrible. And, people, when they commit a crime, whether it be a police officer or a civilian, should be held accountable. But there is a narrative that's being put out there about police that's just so far broad-based that it's, police do great things every day. We had discussion. Our town has a number of the Black Lives Matter signs in yards on on churches and so forth. And we had some really good discussions about that, and our officers are supportive of people, and we're some of the few people in society that raise their hand to defend the Constitution, and people have a right to do that, and we respect that. So we don't see the negative part of that, but certainly our children hear about things when they go to school or their parties. Our spouses, our loved ones, they hear about it, about these different things, and it is difficult for some people to deal with. But we sworn to do a job, and we're going to continue to do it the best we can.
I just was thinking it might be difficult these days. I'm glad to hear that you have the support that you do. I have a minor question. Maybe it's not so minor. I had read a correspondence that came into the town this week, maybe it was last week, regarding the new meters. So I don't understand how they work. A meter, somebody went to feed a meter, it said failed, and didn't understand what that meant. And I thought, if I saw a meter that said failed, I wouldn't understand either. I might put money in, I might not. But, it's like you have a broken meter. So what does a failed meter mean?
It's a broken meter.
So what are you supposed to do? Can you put money in and know that it doesn't take the money?
Well, when the officer goes by, and it's a regular officer that generally does the parking. He knows which ones are broken and which ones aren't. Unfortunately, our meters are so old right now, and I know Marcia is going to give you an update shortly. That there have been times and where it reads failed, and then the officer comes by and it's no longer reading that. It's reading that it's timed out and so forth. And try to get the officer to exercise some discretion there. If somebody comes and they point those things out to her, and somebody gets something like that, and if they get a ticket, then they should request a hearing with the hearings officer.
So basically, a failed meter means it's broken. It's like what the newfangled machines tell you when it's broken.
Yeah, but those are the old ones that they're seeing the fail on, because we don't have any of the new meters are not in
So it
place
could
yet.
fail and then it could cure itself?
Sometimes there are miracles.
Parking meter miracles, another...
But sometimes, it's
Well, do you
batteries.
think we should, this sort of correspondence, you think we should then think about refunding this person's...
But in the
Fine,
case of
or-
a failed meter, what's a person who parks their vehicle at that space, what's the expectation that they're still allowed to park there for the duration that the meter is
Yes.
designated for? So
If a meter is
if it's a
malfunctioning,
15-minute parking space, you you feed the meter, that's how long you're allowed to stay, even if it's broken,
correct.
right? So there could be other reasons why this ticket was written. Maybe they stayed in the space over the period allotted.
So we could probably just offer this to the chief to take a look at. Maybe he's not familiar with it.
So do
So
we
it
give
just
this...
seemed like I
to-
didn't understand what a failed meter meant, and I might have done the same thing as that resident, or that visitor did.
I want to know about these miraculous meters.
This
So
guy wa- he walks
can we
on water,
send
you
this
heard
off
him.
to you for you to worry about?
Yes, and Andrew wants to send it to me, we'll take a look at it.
We'll make sure
Thank
we
you.
do. Chief, thanks so much for coming.
Yeah.
Continue the great work, particularly the community outreach. I think that's what keeps everybody from, misunderstanding what's going on and misunderstanding responsibilities that police have. And it creates a good relationships between the police and the citizens. I thought that open house was just great. I enjoyed it myself. Liked the dog finding the dynamite. That was pretty good. And I didn't even get any free ice cream out of it. Well, thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Very well done.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chief.
Marcia, speaking of parking,
Oh, sorry, talking about parking meters.
boy, we really got these agendas timed, don't we? Good evening.
Good evening.
You are here to give us an update on the new parking meters.
Parking meters, yes.
For the record,
For the record, Marcia Rasmussen, Director of Planning and Land Management for the town. And knowing that there's a lot going on this evening, I provided you with some maps of where we are. We're replacing all of the existing meters on street. As well, we will be extending meters down Main Street in front of Concord Academy. On the Concord Academy side, or the main campus side, it will go as far as Belknap Street. On the library side, it'll go the entire length to Thoreau Street. And then we will also be extending meters on Thoreau Street to the light, so from the business section to the light. We're noticing a lot of commuter parking, and Concord Academy has been using those spaces for students and employees, as well as visitors extensively. So we've been in conversation with Concord Academy to let them know what our plan is, and I'll be doing some follow-up after tonight's meeting, the rest of this week, as well as getting an article into the paper about where we are.
Marcia, can I just interrupt you? This is all that you're reporting is actions you're taking as a consequence of the parking study and
Background, it goes back to 2012 and 2013. Public Works was looking at their signage, and Planning Office was looking at the parking meter situation, the parking management. And our parking consultant at that time determined that we did have a lot of parking available, both in Concord Center, which included the Thoreau Street area, and West Concord. We just needed to better manage it. So we started looking at how do we do all of that, and then there was funding in 2015. Annual town meeting approved $250,000 to begin implementation of our parking management plan. So we've had a group comprised of police, public works, finance, and planning working to put together a plan. And it turns out our metropolitan regional, or our regional planning agency, MAPC, had a contract for both parking meters, individual ones, as well as the multi-space kiosks. So we're taking advantage of that. We needed to get our purchase in before the end of this year. We have ordered, and they have delivered the housings. We expect delivery in another couple of weeks for the innards of those meters. We will be replacing all of the existing meter posts so that we can take advantage of a yoke that will hold 2 meters on each one. So we're trying to reduce the number of posts that are along the street. And then we will also, concurrently, Public Works is put together a contract to improve and upgrade all of the signage. So we last year had extended the time limit from half hour to hour or 2 hours. We're now consistently 3 hours for a majority of our spaces. There are some limited spaces that will remain at half hour near the post office and in the Kaiser Road parking lot near Middlesex Savings Bank. Let's see. I've also been working with a consultant to look at wayfinding. One of the complaints have been an inability to find the West Concord commuter parking lot. So we're looking at some new signage there and some better directional signage, some more informational signage about that lot, because there are a lot of things going on there. Some of the spaces, primarily the ones along the platform from the depot out toward Commonwealth Ave, those are publicly available for 3-hour time period. A couple of them will be leased to the MBTA for use by the Club Car Cafe, because we took some of their spaces in order to put in the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. There are other spaces that are on state land. Those are for use by any commuter. And then there are spaces that are on town-owned land that Concord residents can get a permit for. So we've got 4 different things going on there and multiple uses, and we want to get better signage about how that parking lot is used. So I've been working with a consultant to develop some wayfinding, it's special signage for West Concord, and we've selected a color palette that I hope the HDC will eventually approve for use in Concord Center if that's something that we want to move forward with. Speaking of the HDC, they have asked that we go before them to provide them with an update, because where we are extending meters on Main Street is also part of the historic district. So I'll be doing that in October as well. So that is sort of our our parking meter
Right.
program update. The meters will accept coin, continue to accept coin. We'll continue to have the 12 minutes free, so you can push the button and get the 12 minutes. And we'll also have credit card for Visa or MasterCard and pay by phone. So people will have options for how they pay for their parking.
Any increase in handicap parking?
The town engineer is working on that, and they'll be putting some more. They are actually working on identifying locations for additional handicap parking on street. We will continue to have handicap parking within the parking lots as well.
What is going to be the fee per hour on these?
In the highly desirable areas, the high traffic areas, that it has gone up to $1 an hour. It remains 50 cents an hour for the majority of locations around town. Thoreau Street, West Concord remain at 50. It's primarily in the center here where Walden and Main intersect.
So this is more for parking regulation than revenue.
It's more about managing the parking, yes. Then we're not trying to raise revenue. We're trying to manage the use so that spaces turn over and people can use them regularly. We will, as we're looking at the parking lots, Public Works is going to start design over the winter for both the Keyes Road lot and the Walden Street lot. Keyes Road will continue to have some areas that are completely free. We will be then implementing 8-hour parking or all-day parking in a limited number of spaces. And we're looking at some of the spaces on Main Street in front of Concord Academy for all-day parking as well, because that's the way it's being used. And so we're going to simply try to capture that resource as well.
What's the time frame for installation?
We expect both the signage and the meters to be fully installed by the end of November.
Really? Wow. That's great. Big project.
Yes, it has
For sure.
been. Yes.
Any additional questions?
I don't think I have any.
I see a hand. Yes, you have to come up here.
Marcia, do you know whether the meters in front of the library on Main Street, will those be 3-hour meters? Or?
Yes, they will be.
Yep.
And also, is this a pilot? One time I heard that it was a pilot program, or is that not really the case?
No, we're not having, it's not a pilot program. We're replacing, because of the age of the existing meters, we had to do something. They all needed to be replaced. They fall apart rather frequently, I believe. They fail regularly. So, and you can no longer get the same kind of mechanisms. It takes a while to get everything repaired. What we are doing is purchasing extra. So when we have situations, we'll be able to troubleshoot first, and if there are problems, we'll have some in reserve that we can replace, and we send everything back to the manufacturer. It will be under a warranty for at least a year, and it's a nominal cost to continue that warranty. Meters themselves last about 10 years. That's their life.
It'll be an adjustment for library
Yes,
users,
it
we
will.
know,
Yes,
and
it
so we're sort of anticipating there might be, we might hear some complaints.
We
but-
were aware that Don Kingman from Concord Academy was was adamant about having his people not park directly in front of the library so that it would be available for library patrons. So I think we're trying to accommodate all the different users along there, and that was a comment that we heard as we were doing our outreach.
That's good.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Marcia.
Thanks, Marcia.
It's a big project. Congratulations on the progress, and we'll.
Yes.
Right. That cleared the room.
I don't want to hear that anymore from you.
We should have put parking earlier in the agenda.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Next item is the review of the draft warrant for December special town meeting. You will recall that we were anticipating 3 warrant articles with respect to zoning as a result of Jack McBride's request. And in addition, we received 3 additional warrant articles. One, a pilot agreement for a solar project at Main Street.
Well, that's the W.R. Grace project.
That's the W.R. Grace project, exactly. And an article with respect to the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. And then the most recent addition is the land acquisition article for Balls Hill Road, which the town manager wrote to us about. You also recall that I had suggested that we think about using either the townhouse hearing room or Alcott School or some smaller venue, and I've been persuaded that that was not such a hot idea. I talked on the phone with the town moderator last Friday to discuss this, and we agreed that we would recommend that we use the townhouse, use the high school, and probably use the auditorium, but we're still looking, it's cheaper to do it there. There's some concerns about cords on the floor. The one thing we will do, though, is we will not use the cafeteria as a separate room.
Yes.
We'll set it up so that if somebody's sitting there, they can see what's going on and hear what's going on in the special town meeting, but they won't be able to comment. And Chris is talking with the high school about some limited food capability through their cafeteria.
Yep.
And the like.
So presumably, if they wanted to comment, all they have to do is to come into the auditorium.
Sure, if they want to participate and vote, they come into the auditorium, but if they want to.
They're not being excluded
have a
as
snack,
such, but-
right, and they'll be able to tell if
Yeah.
a vote is
Yeah.
pending, so they'll
Yeah.
be able to come in. The hope is that maybe when we go to a regular town meeting in April, that we would have the auditorium and the gymnasium and continue to use that space. I think the fire chief was not wild about the use of that space anyway. We have that space just set up as a place where people could eat or drink and chat and stuff like that. So our task this evening is to do a couple of things. The town manager reminds me that citizen warrant articles are automatically on the town warrant, but that other articles proposed by parts of the town, we have the ability to decide whether or not they remain on the town warrant. And so we have to make that determination of those additional 3 articles. And then we also should discuss and agree of the order of the articles. And I also had correspondence with the town moderator, who doesn't have any preference for the way the articles are ordered on the town warrant. And as far as I'm concerned, this order is just fine. So I guess comments are there any articles that we would not want to support being on the town warrant?
I see no problem.
Do we need an affirmative action then, or just not taking action to remove them?
As printed?
Approve as printed.
As proved as,
Including the specifically the 6 articles that have been submitted. That would be great. And our hope is to confirm the order.
and confirm the order as presented.
As presented,
And so the motion would be to approve all 6 articles being on the warrant and in the order in which they are presented, and that the special town meeting will be conducted at the high school.
At the high school. And the only other issue for you to consider is Laurel originally proposed a schedule that included 2 hearings, one for the planning board on a Tuesday and the other one for the finance committee and select board on a Thursday. And it's been suggested that for the convenience of the voters to have a single,
One night.
just have it on one night.
That makes
And,
sense.
the Tuesday, I think the finance committee chair indicated that Tuesday would work for her. That was Tuesday, November 29th.
Which is the original planning board one.
That's right. So if all 3 boards could have a hearing that evening, I think it'd be more convenient for citizens.
Is there anything else? Okay.
All right.
Good.
So that's fine. Linda, that square with you?
And we would also be approving the snow date if, so hopefully that won't be an issue, but
Yes, please don't.
One never knows.
Right.
Yes, we would be approving that. So all of that, a snow date would be included in the warrant as presented. But then we would need to amend it, the presentation, to suggest a single public hearing on November the 29th. Any other discussion?
I move to approve the December 2016 special town meeting warrant to include all 6 articles as printed and to authorize the chair and town manager to make minor changes as may be recommended by town council. And to also schedule a joint special town meeting hearing for planning board, FinCom, and the select board at 7 p.m. on November 29th at the town house.
Second.
Oh, wait, order. And the order as
Printed.
Oh, as
printed.
printed.
Yeah.
second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I would just add that in the warrant, it says Board of Selectmen.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's the template.
Some things just don't
Never change.
die, do they? All right, great. Public comments, Linda. Thank you for coming. Liaison reports. Tom?
I've been traveling, so I did not attend the various meetings, but the Board of Assessors met, and on September 20th, and there was no sort of dramatic issues involved. I went through the motor vehicle excise tax end-of-month report and discussed the property values and that type of thing. The Library Committee also met on the 20th and discussed a technology fair, spring community conversations, and acceptance of minutes, that type of thing. And the Historical Commission met on the 22nd and had public hearings of 5 different properties. There was ongoing updates on the archaeological project and the Ball Benson House, and there was a discussion of Preservation Award update.
Great, thank you. Steve?
I had the pleasure of attending the Hanscom Area Town Selectmen meeting last Thursday to discuss traffic issues in all the Hats towns. Rich Rainey and Chief O'Connor were able to join me, and it was quite the discussion. We shared our process and how the public can interact with our traffic safety group, and kind of shared ideas and ways to try to stop ways to keep cars from infiltrating through our communities. But it is definitely a common issue for all of us. And we discussed many options, different mitigation ideas, speed bumps, etc. But I think it's just the volume and the congestion at those times of the day. So stay tuned.
Fairly intractable. Yeah. Good, is that it?
Yep.
Alice?
A few very short updates. Maybe you've heard by now that CSEC is planning a town-wide fair called Cooler Concord, and it'll be an all-town educational outreach fair. Well, there'll be vendors, there'll be activities, there'll be peer learning about solar, alternative energy, maybe alternative food sources, a whole variety of sustainable concepts that people have found are generating a lot of interest. So there's a committee working to put that on. It'll be at the high school, spring.
February, I think.
February. I attended the Board of Health meeting. The discussion was twofold. One was about the implementation of the polystyrene ban that comes into effect in January and the role of the Public Health Board. It was discussed, and I'm glad to see we have some people who are volunteering for that committee because they're going to have their work cut out for them for the short term. And probably, I just came before this meeting from another meeting with the Minuteman Vote Tech School Building Committee. Very happy to know that we are back in business.
Really?
We are on this flow chart that's been in effect now since November of 2008. We are on Module 6.
How's it flow? How's it?
Starts at the top.
Yeah. Oh, okay. There you go.
So we are now at Module 6. In October, there will be design phase for the detailed design. Final design will be happening this fall. We'll be going out to bid for a construction manager and for a site property, what's it called, the OPM? Owner's property, yeah, owner's property, project manager. Both of those will be out by the end of November. We hope to have the construction manager on site, on board, by the 1st of December. Pretty exciting. This is moving ahead. These folks in the committee have been on the committees since a long time
Day
ago.
one. Right?
So I'm the newbie on the board, and there's a lot of enthusiasm to move forward after the vote.
And I think sort of related to that, you had indicated that the town of Belmont is organizing a special town meeting to consider their withdrawal from the district. Is that correct? And I think the issue for us is that, as I may have mentioned, if they choose to withdraw, then the towns in the district have got to decide whether or not they oppose it. And to oppose it requires calling a special town meeting to do so. So our decision will be after they do it. I think we have 60 days. So hopefully they won't get this done before October 8th, so that if we did want to have a special town meeting, we could have a special town meeting inside a special town meeting. But we'll be deciding whether or not we want to oppose their withdrawal. If we don't want to oppose it, we don't need to do anything. But if we do, so we'll stay tuned and we'll have to talk about that at some point.
Do we know how quickly Belmont is?
I don't know if
They're trying to do a special town meeting this fall to vote on whether to withdraw. Coming into this district-wide election, they had voted to stay in the district, but there was a very big campaign, and the town voted unanimously, by a very wide margin, to defeat the project. So once the project was approved by all the other communities in total, they're left with, okay, do we stay in the district or not? It appears from the discussion this evening they're considering withdrawing.
And the advantage to them, for the record, if they would choose to withdraw, is that they are then not liable for any capital costs. And that's true whether or not they actually withdraw. It's just their intent to withdraw that allows them to escape that.
So it would just be any town that wanted to oppose them would have to run a special town meeting, and then it would be whoever votes for and against.
It requires all towns vote unanimously together to oppose them. If one community, if you have one community that supports their withdrawal, then they get to withdraw.
But that all the towns have to run a special town meeting. So if you don't run one, you're basically supporting
Letting
it.
them out. Right, exactly. So that's going to be
That's what we have to consider.
our consideration.
So let's wait and see what they, if they have a special town meeting and what the warrant article is that they're proposing.
Well, I would be floored if it didn't have an article to withdraw from the district, given the vote and given the, the representative selectmen have voted against this to begin with, which
Yep.
led to the special town meeting. I have nothing really, I have a couple things quickly to report. I attended a sort of an open house social event at a Hanscom Air Force Base by the base commander. We had a very successful coordination meeting last Thursday. And I was also able to attend a sort of retirement reception for Court Booth, who's leaving service of the school after, I believe, it was some 31 years. So he's made a lot of important contributions over the years, and it was a nice event. All right, so committee nominations.
Yeah.
I nominate Nancy Kerr of 25 Upland Road to the Polystyrene Education and Outreach Committee for a term to expire January 2017.
I would also like to nominate, can I do that? Topher Buck of 31 Damon Street to the Polystyrene Education and Outreach Committee for a term to expire January 2017.
Thank you. All right, and then committee appointments. We had previously nominated, Scott, we don't need to approve the nominations, correct?
No, we do have to vote to appoint,
To appoint,
No,
yes, but
not
not the
the
not the
nomination.
nomination. So we
now-
need to move to appoint Scott Richardson of 260 Elsinore Street to the Polystyrene Education and Outreach Committee for a term to expire January 2017.
For a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Like motion to adjourn, we do not have an executive session this evening, so motion to adjourn. All in
Second.
favor? Aye. We're done. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.